Since the beginning of 2022, there's been 55 mass death events of mass animal die-offs. Since the beginning of 22, 55 events. And I wanted to document these events in a video because it's important to keep track of these things, because what is this in relation to? You know, people wonder, of course, why is this happening? And a good instant way to think about this is, what is it in relation to Bible prophecy? Because many of these events cannot be related to some type of event such as an oil spill or climate change or something along those lines. The two verses that we can look at that would relate to these events would be, of course, 2 Timothy 3:1, knowing this, that in the last days perilous times will come, with the list of horrible things that will happen. Doesn't specifically say animal die-offs in this event, but we know in other places it does, and it surely ties into being perilous. But the most noted verse would be Hosea 4:3, talking about before the return of the Lord. Hosea 4:3, therefore the land will mourn, and everyone who dwells there will waste away, with the beasts of the field and the birds of the air. Even the fish of the sea will be taken away. Clearly in relation to the times again. And I mean, some people don't believe the Bible's true, yet these prophecies were written so long ago, and we see them fulfilled to an absolute T. We also know in Revelation 8, at the second trumpet, that 1/3 of the animals will die. We haven't seen the trumpets of Revelation yet, in my opinion, but we are seeing these events start to take place, and for sure, the leading up to this day of the animals being taken away before the day of the Lord. So here is these events documented through articles and videos. Keep your hearts and minds and eyes fixed on Jesus, because he is the one who brings peace. He's the one who can heal our problems. He's the answer to everything, especially from an individual within your life to the worldwide events going on. Thanks for watching. God bless.
We can only live a few days without water, and only by changing our relationship to it,
stopping it from flowing and doing what it should be doing. So we interfere with water doing its job, basically that. And every time we do that, that's an injustice. Water can also be property. So water is also understood to be private property. So you have unequal access, and as a result, people suffer. So having access to fresh water is really important in order to just live.
In Flint, Michigan, the government treated water like just another cost to be cut. It switched the city's supply to the Flint River, but failed to prevent lead from leaching into the water. Caitlin Tobin's son drank the water.
I barely let him take a bath in the water. I buy bottled water and try washing him down as much as I can, and then he was getting bumps all over. They said because of the lead in his own blood, he couldn't get rid of it.
Lead is toxic in even the smallest amounts and can cause irreversible brain damage and even death in children. And parents here worry about their kids' future.
This water is from my tap. This right here shows it. They're saying this is safe for us. This is what happens when profit takes precedence over people, and we're just here to stand as one to say that we won't stand for this.
What do we want? Clean water! What do we want it now? If we don't get it, shut it down!
At the core of our global water crisis,
when you're outside or near water, in the presence of water, to me it conveys a sense of respect. It's a sense of awe that despite everything, water is still flowing. Water's still trying to do what it's supposed to be doing despite everything that you throw at it. It's just such an awesome power.
in this new era, humans are responsible for the greatest impacts on the planet's water. But McGregor believes we still have the power to change the course we're on.
People are the ones who have the power and the will and the intelligence to mess up. We're so intelligent that we can be so beautiful and innovative and creative, but we can also be so destructive. So there's that side of us. So we've been destructive collectively as humanity, some way more so than others, and we have to then use our intelligence and our will and our power to solve this huge thing that we've created. So we're the ones who actually have to change.
Water is the lifeblood of all civilization. Without it, people simply can't live. In modern history, running out of water in the United States has never been a serious issue. Today, however, that's no longer the case. So what if the American Southwest runs out of water? Hello and welcome to What If Geography, where we try and answer the great geographic what if questions of the world. I'm your host, Jeff Gibson, and today we're going to talk about water, or rather the lack of it, specifically for the American Southwest, which has some acute water issues that are caused by natural disaster, population migration, and early 1900s water policies. This specific river has been so important to the entire region that 7 states had to create a legal and binding agreement in 1922 to determine who gets water from the river and how much. This agreement, termed the Colorado River Compact, divided the river into the upper basin and the lower basin. For the upper basin, the water is split among Colorado, which gets 51.75% of the available water, Utah with 23% of the water, Wyoming with 14%, and New Mexico with 11.25%. Arizona also gets a very small portion of the upper basin's water. For the lower basin, the water is split between California, which receives 58.7% of the water, Arizona with 37.3% of the water, and Nevada with 4%. In addition to these states, Mexico is allocated about 10% of the total volume of water from the entire river. To say that the Colorado River is heavily depended on would be an understatement. For while the Colorado River doesn't naturally flow through any major population centers, with the exception of a relative close Las Vegas, states have diverted the river in multiple ways in order to get water to areas where people actually live. Both the Los Angeles and Phoenix regions, with a combined population of about 23.7 million people, draw water directly from the Colorado River. Unfortunately, the Colorado River was never intended to supply water to so many people. Back in 1922, when these agreements were finalized, the Los Angeles region had about 1.2 million people and the Phoenix region with about 100,000 people. Even after the aqueducts were constructed later in the century, both regions' populations were a fraction of the current population that needs water today. And of course, all of this is combined with the reality that the western half of North America is undergoing a serious mega drought. Water is highly monitored, and there are systems and checks in place to ensure that one day you won't wake up and just magically find that the tap is run dry. Unless you're pulling from your own unmetered well, of course. The run up to the day without water would not be fun though. Much like we saw in Cape Town, South Africa in 2018, as that day draws closer and closer, there would be a sharp decrease in the amount of water you could use. At its most desperate point, each Cape Town resident could only use 13 gallons of water each day. To put this into context, the average American shower uses about 17 gallons of water and lasts about 8 minutes. Now think of all the other things you use water for throughout the day. In total, the average American uses just over 100 gallons of water per day for all of their needs. You would need to cut your water usage by about 90% to be at the same point as Cape Town residents were. Of course, this wouldn't just affect you personally. Agriculture markets would also be highly affected, which would have repercussions for the entire country and global markets. Wheat, leafy greens, pecans, grapes, and even cotton are all grown in Arizona. Crops, of course, take a lot of water to grow, and any disruption in. If you're enjoying this video, now would be a great time to subscribe. More great geography videos are just one click away.
The Mount Etna volcano erupts for the 50th time within the year. Mount Etna is the most active volcano in Europe. Every time it erupts, it gets taller due to the accumulation of ejected lava. In 2021 alone, the volcano has grown about 30 meters taller. Although Mount Etna was once underwater, today it's the tallest volcano in Europe. Its height reaches 3,357 meters above sea level. And it doesn't just grow. Mount Etna brings death. It covers 2.5 times the area of Vesuvius. And since the 13th century BC, the volcano has drowned several cities and hundreds of thousands of people in its boiling lava. In the past, its eruptions caused droughts and landslides. In 2020, the volcano came back to life. The ash plumes rose as high as 5 kilometers. All flights through the area had to be canceled, and maybe that's just the beginning. The bad news is that for some volcanoes, that time has already come. Thus, Mount Etna pales in comparison with the Yellowstone supervolcano. The eruption resulted in the complete evacuation of magma reserves beneath the volcano and a crater collapse to boot. That's why the Yellowstone volcano doesn't look like a mountain. It's a caldera, a volcanic depression. Last time, the volcano spewed more than 1,000 cubic kilometers of dust and lava into the atmosphere. That would be enough to cover a large city with a several kilometer thick layer of dust. Although this time, it's not waking up alone, but simultaneously with another supervolcano, the Long Valley Caldera. In March 2016, its seismic activity surpassed Yellowstone's. This was evidenced by a series of earthquakes throughout California.